Thank you for tuning into this episode. Unfortunately, being way out on the Dude Ranch, reception can get really, really bad. And this is exactly what happened in this particular episode, especially for our guest. There are many times that it is very glitchy and it's very difficult to understand what he is saying, so please bear with us while we work through this technical difficulties way out in the West.
And now, a Nickelodeon poem.
I know of a place where you can boot polish your face. There's clean living, friendly cacti, and real cowpoke, where the land is spacious and burritos delicious, and all the horses and coyotes get sunstroke. It's where kids make the rules, because the boss is a fool. The flea-bitten dog is smarter than that dork. But you won't be surprised when you mosey on bys, because this Dude Ranch is on the First Kids Network.
Oh, brother.
Kick it.
Welcome to Splat Attack, a 90s podcast honoring the slime-filled past. I'm your rootinest, tootinest, rough-riding rancher, Alex. And for today's episode, I don't think we ventured this far west inside Nick territory before. Today, I am in the deserts of Arizona for a reason that is a little wild and a little strange out here on the range. And because we have barely talked about this show so far, I felt it would be a great opportunity to get out of the city and take a nice, relaxing, worry-free trip to the Bar None Ranch. Now saddle up for a whole lot of Hey Dude, Slimesters, because we're about to rank all 13 episodes of Season 1. Now, it's one thing to visit a Dude Ranch on your own, but since there are so many sights and sounds to experience here, I'm going to head to the check-in office and get a guide. So let me ring the bell over here. Hello? Anyone here? I'm looking for a bunk to stay in for the next hour or so.
Mr. Ernst is out to lunch, but I'd be helpful to stay on.
Oh, well, that's mighty kind of you. Say, what's your name, cowpoke?
Buddy's doing chores, so I'm here to see and help recruits. I mean, guests. Welcome here.
Well, good thing we have you here to help show us the ropes. So, tell us a bit about your background with Hey Dude before we spur ourselves into action.
A lot of memories from back when I was a little, even though it could have been a toddler was on. I just remember it got a lot of laughs from me. I remember how I first learned what the word immature meant. And I remember as a kid, my favorite character on the show was mainly because I tended, being a kid, I tended to relate to the kid characters on those. Mm-hmm. Danny.
Yes. And there's actually quite a bit of speculation about what happened to Danny. Not necessarily the character, but Joe Torres, who played Danny. For anyone who doesn't know, one of the biggest mysteries is what happened to him after the show, because he just kind of disappeared. All the other actors you can find and track, and they even had a reunion just a few years ago, but Joe he's kind of MIA, and there was actually, I'll have to see if I can find it, but one of the obscure Nickelodeon, I think was the name of the Twitter account that I followed. They had actually found a podcast episode from someone when they actually was able to track down Joe Torres and find out that he's just in his own little, he's off the beaten path, doesn't really want to be in the limelight, and that's perfectly cool. But
I respect that.
But much like you, as a kid, I didn't really watch Hey Dude. I remember it being on. I remember enjoying, I loved the theme song.
Of course.
I would tune in for the theme song. I'd tune in for the very end. But everything that was in the middle, I don't know if I was just too young for it, because I was a bit older than you were. I was probably about 5 or 6. But it just didn't resonate with me. And a lot of it was because a lot of the things that they were talking about and doing were for an age demographic slightly older than what I was. So it never clicked. But when I was an adult and getting back into watching Nickelodeon shows again, and I would start finding the DVDs and try to get an entire Nickelodeon library. And I had a son, which is now my youngest, and my wife, I'd let her sleep, so I would get up for all the 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock feedings. And when I did, I would turn on Hey Dude and just start watching that. So I'd watch an episode while I fed him and then put him back to sleep, and then I'd go to sleep. But the first few months of his life, I would watch Hey Dude, and I was glued to this thing. Now as an adult, I really enjoy it. It's not as well respected, I think, as Salute Your Shorts, and I can understand that. But for the most part, this is kind of an underrated show and is a lot of fun.
And yeah, not as Sleep Shorts or Pete, but it's definitely got its moments. Got its fun moments, some pretty smart moments, and like I said last, some surprising kind of fun moments.
Yeah, it's a very fun series, and yeah, not as good as Salute Your Shorts, not as good as Pete and Pete. Definitely not as good as Pete and Pete. I think Pete and Pete is like top tier comedy show for Nickelodeon. But this is pretty good. I mean, there's still a lot to enjoy here, which we'll talk about as we go through the episode. And actually, Brett had made some artwork for the show, so I will share a picture here of his artwork that he had made of Mr. Ernst, which is any artwork does that any artwork that Brett does is always beautiful. And Brett also, as all of you know by now, Brett is not going to be able to finish out the rest of the season, but he did go ahead and give me his ratings for the episodes. So we'll address them as we come to them. Some of them have notes, some of them don't, but all of them have a rating. So we're just going to go right into it, and we'll start with season 1, episode 1, day 1 at the Bar None. The air date for this was July 14th, 1989. It was directed by Ross K. Bagwell Jr. It was written by Alan Goodman. And the basic synopsis is, once the group of employees assemble to begin their work at the ranch, Ted finds himself failing to impress the new writing instructor, Bradley. Adam, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I'd say, I mean, I don't know if you've even seen it before. It's a pretty solid pilot episode. I mean, it introduces the characters pretty well. We each of their finding dates pretty well. I mean, Danny's little kid is us aren't paid best persona. We see Ernest as the especially awkward dork. We see Ted as the conceited fist, who generally means well. The heart of gold. Brad, a little where she's coming from, and I really like the scene in the end where Ted thinks a little of Brad's writings, but then she ends up successfully breaking that wild horse. The way that scene was shot and edited of her taming it was, I thought, honestly, really photography. Instrumental cover of the theme song too when she's doing it.
Yes, there is. It's such a nice little rendition of it. And I agree with you. The one of the biggest complaints that I think I've seen about Hey Dude is it just seems like nothing happens. They're all just kind of sitting around talking throughout almost every episode, but there's actually a pretty decent amount, and that being one of them, with Ted trying to tame the really not quite wild animal, but a very, very wild, still regardless, horse, and how Bradley can just calm it very, very quickly. What do you rate this episode? What is it hit on your rating scale?
I'd say probably, well, like Brett, US's Splat standing.
Splat standing. Well, I will go ahead and tell you all Brett's ranking because as Adam just said, he had a double S for this one. He did have some notes for it. Brett said that he loved how it sets the stage for the series with the opening shot and all the staff meeting each other right from the get-go. You understand everyone's unique personalities, and he loved Brad and Ted's ongoing rivalry, which is established here, along with Melody's sweetness, Danny's wisdom, Buddy's innocence, Lucy's level-headedness, and Mr. Ernst's goofy ambition. This is how a first episode is done right. Love it and love rewatching it. And I don't know why. It seems like he and I are, I don't want to say polar opposite this throughout most of this episode. Because polar opposite would be like, no, I would have this as an F, but it seems like we alternate between the S and the A categories a lot, because I'm very, very picky. But I really do enjoy this pilot episode. Much like both you and Brett, I agree that I think that perfectly establishes all of the characters. I like how they have a little bit of adventure at the end, but there's nothing about this episode that really stands out as fantastic pilots among all the other Nick pilots that we've had. So it doesn't reach my S tier, but it's definitely an A tier for me. So I give this a Splatcellent. Episode 2, we're just going to fly right through. Episode 2, Battle of the Sexes. This came out July 21st, 1989. Also directed by Ross K. Bagwell Jr., and the writer is Michael B. Kaplan. The general synopsis is Ted and Brad declare war against each other to determine which gender is the best of the West through a series of tasks that may be better fit for either a male or a female. What is your thoughts on this episode?
One thing I like, Zach, is actually something that separates from when shows today, especially shows as the kids would try and do that battle of sex trope, is, usually they portray one side as being as modern shows usually portray one as being superior, usually the girls. I mean, yeah, girl power and all, but yeah, it's getting kind of tired, and in the wrong way, it can send a bad message. But I like that with this particular episode, it doesn't go that way. They both lads kind of miss the mark in their own ways. And they both decide to declare it a tie, recognizing that they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. I'd say that was a pretty darn good way of handling that kind of storyline.
So where does this hit your ranking?
For the ranking, I'd say probably Splatcellent.
Okay. That is an A.
Yeah, and I'd say it also gets a lot of humor points, especially for lines like the cupcakes from the Black Lagoon.
Our casserole is clearly better than your cupcakes from the Black Lagoon.
Okay, let's see.
Brett, his comment for this episode is the infamous Danny asks about everyone's birthday episode.
I've been hinting about birthdays all week because tomorrow's his birthday. And I've just been pretending not to notice because tomorrow I'm really planning a surprise party for him in the bunk. When's her birthday, do you know?
Oh, no, I don't. Why?
Oh, it's just nice to know when people's birthdays are. Say, Ted, when's your birthday? Oh, mine's in March, Danny. Because I wouldn't want to forget your birthdays.
I'm a Cancer, because my birthday's in July.
I mean, guys care about real important things.
Right, like having fun.
And friends.
And birthdays.
Well, girls care about more important things, like friends.
And birthdays? I just have a feeling that it's somebody's birthday today.
Birthdays are a wonderful thing, aren't they?
Which we did address this episode in our favorite birthday episodes over on Patreon. But he said that Brad and Ted's rivalry really amps up in this episode in a series of gender-oriented tasks, such as baking a cake or riding a horse or even fishing to determine which one is better in each event. And he loved how the others get in on the action too, and how despite the competitive nature, both headstrong characters make amends by the end. Great chemistry on screen. Another season 1 classic. Oh, and don't eat any cupcakes if they look like dog turds. Cassie knows what's up, he says.
What does that dog know? Just taste it.
That's always a good source of wisdom. Cat advice. Thank you, Brett. If you're listening, we all love you and miss you, buddy.
Brett's ranking for the episode is an S, a splatterific. And yes, those are very good points, especially coming what you had said, Adam, because we do get this trope a lot, especially in kid shows of boys versus girls. And yeah, there is a time whenever it would mostly be the girls are smart and the boys are bumbling doofuses. But this one, they really did have a nice, even pair where one would, I mean, they're both headstrong, they're both exceedingly competitive, and they both would mess up in some form or cheat in some form, but they don't call it cheating. It's kind of a loophole that they would look for.
Sorry, Brad, but you lose. You didn't complete the course. You turned around before going around the barrel. You had to go around the barrel to complete the course, and you didn't, so we win. We got 7 big ones here.
Ted, what are you trying to pull? You bought these.
Of course. We said the winner is whoever gets the most fish, not whoever catches the most.
Overall, it is a very good episode, even if it's a little repetitive, because by the time the second competition comes around, you're starting to figure out, oh, they're going to just find a way to have this end in a draw, and then they're going to do it again, and then they're going to do it again. So it gets a little repetitive. And also the fact that we've seen this trope so many times, I'm going to put this as a B, Splatisfactory, but still a very good episode. And one of the, I think one of the classics. Plus, Danny is not subtle at all in his attempts to get people to remember his birthday.
That was funny.
Just walks up. Yeah, when's your birthday? It would be really sad if anybody forgot your birthday, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Our third episode, Goldilocks. This was July 28th, 1989, also directed by Ross K. Bagwell Jr., and also written by Mr. Alan Goodman. The synopsis for this is: just when Buddy takes a liking to a horse named Goldilocks at the ranch, his father and ranch owner, Mr. Ernst, makes plans to sell her. The plan upsets Buddy enough that he runs away with the horse in the open desert. What are your thoughts on Goldilocks?
A lot of thoughts. Well, first off, this is one of the episodes I do very clearly remember, at least part of it when I was a kid. Specifically, I remember that seeing the commercial for it with it saying, with it focusing on the conflict between Buddy and Dad, saying, "Hey, dude, hey, Dad." And then with the episode itself, it has some pretty heartwarming moments as we see Buddy finding something that he likes, but then, suddenly learning he's about to lose it. Although, and then obviously, see everyone swing into action when they learned the immense danger Buddy had gotten himself into by having to run away in the middle of the Arizona desert. So seeing all of them pitch into trying to was definitely a heartwarming moment. Though all that being said, the episode loses some points in my book for the fact that the whole subplot involving Goldilocks, gonna be sold or whatnot, it's sort of abandoned by the end. Like no one, like by the time Buddy's found, no one says a word about Goldilocks anymore. Like maybe just a teensy bit of closure, a single line, one way or another, I think would have elevated the episode a little more in my book.
Okay, so what is your official ranking for it?
I'd call it Splatisfactory.
That's still respectable. Brett has pretty much a single one line, a sweet, misguided story that can tug at your heartstrings, especially if you've ever run away from home as a kid before, which he has. He gives this an A for Splatcellent. On my end, if you've been watching the show for any decent amount of time, you will know that I am a big advocate for positive father figures in any medium. And Mr. Ernst, although he is often seen as a bumbling doofus, he really does love his son. And I really, really love how this episode started, because he was genuinely concerned for Buddy, and he loves to be there. Mr. Ernst, he loves being at this new ranch. They had left, it was Jersey?
I know it's different from New Jersey. That's why I like it here.
They were now out here in the ranch, and Mr. Ernst does not like the city. And we actually find out in another episode we get to see Mom, where she's still very much a city person. But Mr. Ernst does not. He's happy here, and you can see it when the very first episode. He's so, everything's beautiful. He doesn't know where anything is, but he's happy to be here. But he's also worried about his son because Buddy is bored. And for the first half of the show, he pretends like everything's okay. He's just bored. And even at one point, Mr. Ernst stops and looks right at Buddy and says, "Are you sure you're okay?"
Are you unhappy here? Because if you are, I want you to know that you don't have to stay. I mean, I want you to stay. I love having you here. I just want you to be happy. Buddy, you do like the ranch, don't you?
Sure, Dad. I love it.
And I really appreciate the fact that Mr. Ernst is willing to listen to his son. And even by the end of the episode, whenever they find out that he's not happy there, Mr. Ernst does offer him a solution. He actually gives him the choice. Do you want to go back home and stay with your mom? Or maybe we could work something out. And Buddy didn't want to do that. He wants to stay with Dad. He'll find a way to make it work.
You miss New Jersey.
Yeah, but when I'm in New Jersey, I miss you. So I guess I'll stick around here for a little while.
And I really, really love that. Because it's rare that you see that kind of dynamic in a kid's show, especially Nickelodeon in the 90s, because usually it's, well, I say we're staying at the ranch, so we're staying at the ranch. That wasn't the case. That was, I want to hear your opinion. Well, if this isn't working, do you want to try this? No, I still want to stay here with you. I really, really love that. So for that reason, that 1 point alone puts this in S tier category for me. So I put this at Splatterific. Episode 4, Ted's Saddle. This came out August 4th, 1989, was directed by Frederick King Keller and written by Judy Spencer. Ted becomes so obsessed with obtaining a John Wayne saddle that he'll do any sort of odd job to save up and purchase it. The problem is, Ted's quest for glory and fame comes at the cost of his friends picking up the slack for his ranch duties. What are your thoughts on this episode?
Well, maybe a pretty funny episode, though. Yeah, it definitely gains a lot of points for teaching me something I never knew about John Wayne. Apparently, he really wasn't fond of horses in real life.
John Wayne was a movie star. In real life, he disliked horses.
I thought it was a funny detail. And it cuts well with Ted up to that point calling him an actor the greatest cowboy who ever lived. Yeah, I mean, Ted usually comes across as not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer. This is a good picture of that.
Once owned by John Wayne.
I'm not listening.
John Wayne, Luce, the greatest cowboy that ever lived.
But for the most part, Ted's not going to exactly be picking up any new fans for how he acts in this episode. Though he does redeem himself by the end when he realizes what a selfish jerk he'd been up to that point, and means to help Melody for the money she lost trying to put this for him.
Yes, very much so. What is your ranking?
I'd say probably go give out the ranking you gave. We can give it as excellent.
All right. Brett did not give me any additional notes for this. All I have is his ranking, which is a Splatterific. Brett, if you're watching this, you feel free to add in the comments some of these why you rated these the way you did if you want to. You don't have to. But for me, yes, I give this a Splatcellent as well. I think I have very much the same relationship with Ted and the show as the others do, which is a very much love-hate relationship because I really like Ted, and then there are episodes I just don't like him, and he's so obnoxious, and this is one of them. Um, I do understand having a passion for wanting something and to do the extra work for it, but you only have so much time. And then the others care for him enough to put in the extra work, but they're working just as hard as he is, and they're exhausted, and he's very much taking their efforts for granted, which is a trope that you see sometimes. I mean, almost everything you see in Hey Dude are tropes that we've seen in other shows, which is to be respected because this is their first scripted television show. So I can understand why they just stuck with tropes. But the thing about it is, we've still seen these kinds of things before, and Ted, for the most part, is just he's arrogant, and that I don't really want to watch that for 24 minutes. But like you had said, I really do love that moment right at the very end, that last 3 minutes of the episode, because Melody did end up losing somebody's pack in the lake, and $82 came out of her paycheck to reimburse that person for what was damaged.
It was too much for me, Ted. I got too tired. I put the pack down, and now the pack's at the bottom of the lake. And I'm expected to pay for it. $88.
Well, that's a tough break, Mel. I mean, I'm sorry.
And Ted ended up taking some of that extra money that he made doing all these odd end jobs and then gave it to Melody without admitting it was him, but she knew it was him.
Well, if it was under your pillow, then it must be yours.
You know, sometimes you can be a pretty terrific guy.
It was a rare, genuinely rare, tender moment from Ted to show that he's not a terribly unethical person. He's just a conceited person who has a lot to learn.
Yeah. And then after that, when Mr. Ernst gives him the chance for more jobs, he's learned his lesson because he realized that pursuing us, not only is it costing himself and his friends a lot, but it's in terms of all the extra workload, but that's also honestly just kind of a stupid waste of money to just shell all that for us. So yeah, he says that he's not interested in buying something that would be so wasteful. He doesn't think anymore. Good. Learn something. Way to go. Mm-hmm.
And also, and I forgot to mention this in the Goldilocks episode. Another thing I really liked about that episode was how all of the rivalry that we've seen in the past two episodes completely subsided whenever they realized that Buddy was out in the desert. And I mean, it was instant. I mean, there was no hesitation. Ted said, "I'm going to go out and find him," and Brad said, "I'm coming with you in case one of us needs to come back." And it was very smart planning.
Well, I'm going out to that trail.
Well, I'm going with you. In case he's hurt, one of us can go out back for help, and the other one can stay with him.
And I loved that they were all concerned for him. He appreciated that he was being concerned for. It's chef's kiss. I love it. Even though it's a runaway episode trope, it was done exceptionally well. Anyway, moving on. Episode 5, The Competition. This was August 11th, 1989, was once again directed by Ross K. Bagwell Jr., and it was written by Graham Yost. The synopsis for this is, what will it take for Brad and Ted to win the chance to lead an overnight camping trip through the ranch? What are your thoughts?
But I say I like this episode a lot. It was mainly for, I think the main advantage it has is the humor value too. I mean, between first Brad variously botching the CPR dummy, complete with taking off the arm and then using that to snip the leg.
All right, what happened to her arm?
I wanted to stop the spread of poison, like you said.
So you removed her entire arm? Well, that's an interesting concept. One thing, though. You removed the wrong arm.
I did. Well, what about the leg?
The leg I like. It's a creative solution. Glad to see you didn't waste anything.
And also Ted hiding the rubber snake in Brad's bag. Just the fact that you would do that in the midst of this competition was definitely funny.
Got your knife? Got your snake! Ted!
Ted had another idiot moment. That he didn't have the foresight to check out this area before taking Melody there to realize, oh goodness me, there is an abandoned mine shaft over here. Maybe this isn't the safest place to take a blindfolded teenage girl. Now, but then that leads to a pretty exciting, well-handled climax with Brad having to red Melody from it. I like that. I'd say splatterific.
For Brett, once again, this is one that he doesn't have additional notes for. In fact, I don't think he has additional notes for the rest of this episode until the very last episode, I think. Or I'm sorry, the last, 3. I'm looking at him now. No, I think the last episode is the only one he really has a note for. But for this episode in particular, the rating he gave it was a B, a Splatisfactory. And for me, I also give it a B. It's again another trope, and I do like that it was between Brad and Melody this time, and not Brad and Ted like it had been. And it's more of an opportunity to showcase Melody, because up to this point she's just been the cheerful, happy, I like to help people type personality, but we get to see it fleshed out a little bit more in this episode. I don't know. I still have a hard time really buying Melody as being something of a competitor. I see her more as a people-pleasing person. But even then, the episode up to that point was pretty standard, and it was decent. I enjoyed it. But yeah, much like you had pointed out, whenever Ted was just being completely unprepared and left Melody blindfolded near an abandoned mine shaft, I'm like, oh, come on, dude. How are you not fired by this point?
I mean, and that goes beyond just incompetence. That's blatant putting a co-worker's safety in serious jeopardy. That is a fireable places.
Yes, no, you are gone. The fact that you're not gone by the end of this really says a lot about Mr. Ernst and his inability to really pay attention to his crew. But overall, it's a decent episode. A big plot hole or mine hole throughout it, but for the most part, it's a good romp. Episode 6, Rehearsal for Romance. Air date was August 18th, 1989, was directed by Frederick King Keller, written by Michael B. Kaplan, and the synopsis is when a college boy shows up at the ranch and asks teenage Melody out. She asks Ted's help for advice so she can make a lasting impression on her date. Adam, what are your thoughts?
That was a nice, sweet little romance scene episode. I mean, she seemed to really like this guy. He seemed like a good guy, and I liked her wanting to connect with him. Let's see, then some pretty funny moments with obviously goofy advice. Some of the things that he suggests.
Now I'll be this guy, and I'll say to you, Melody, blah 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 blah, and you say,
Wait a minute. What did you say?
huh, it doesn't matter. Anything I say, just say, that's the most interesting thing I've ever heard.
But then also a pretty good moment with the little Indian folktale that shares.
But the deer's sharp hoof cut the fox up very badly because the fox didn't have a hard shell like the turtle. And the moral of the story is, if you're a fox, don't try to be a turtle.
And the moral at the end of it, if you're a fox, don't be a turtle. At first, it just seems like first here it seems sort of like a, like does that mean kind of thing. But then in the end, when you see Melody indeed connecting with the guy by being herself, plays that really sweet music, and then you hear Danny's voice reprising that, like, Oh yeah, now I get it. It's basically so yes, it's a be yourself. Don't try and be something you're not to impress people or meet your goals. Be yourself. So yeah, good any wisdom to cap off a good episode. I'd say splatterific.
All right. We're all around it this episode. Brett gave it a double S. I am assuming because he also really resonated with that message. I give it an A, Splatcellent. And I really like the way it was handled. The problem is I'm rating this against other romance episodes of Nickelodeon, and I'm holding it to a higher standard than I probably should. But I do really like this episode. It's adorable to see Melody bumbling and trying to impress somebody. And I mean, she's sweet, she's kind. All we all know it. All she has to do is be herself. But I really do love that Ted thinks so highly of himself and gives advice, and it all goes awful. And I love that by the end of it, she was thanking Ted for his advice. And he was all arrogant and full of himself, like, ah, yes, it worked, huh? And then she was like, I just did the opposite of everything you told me, and it worked. I was like, I love that moment.
My advice worked, huh?
Well, kind of. I mean, everything went wrong until I finally figured out to do the opposite of everything you said. But then it went great. So thanks, Ted. I owe it all to you.
In fact, good general advice for the series as a whole. If Ted suggests you do something, do the opposite.
That's absolutely true. But it's a very good episode. I really do enjoy it, and obviously Adam enjoyed it even higher, and Brett even higher than that. It's a very, very well done episode, and also I think it was the only one that ended with a voiceover on top of it as they were fading out, doing the turtle quote again, and also a rare moment for us to really see Danny's tender side a little bit, because we've seen Danny be sympathetic on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, I don't want to say he's an instigator, but he does love to pour salt in an open wound, which is kind of fun to see.
Ha! Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Danny.
What?
It's enough.
Wait, just one more? Ha! Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, he has a strong sense of mischief to him. Part of my favorite character as an adult.
And he's so laid back and plays it so innocently that he can get away with it, which I think is absolutely brilliant.
So what are the steaks gonna be?
I like my steaks medium rare.
But he also does have a genuine heart, more so than I think Ted does.
And the moral of the story is, if you're a fox, don't try to be a turtle.
Oh, I'm excited about this one. Episode. Oh, I just realized this too. Episode 7, Perfect Father. This air date for this is August 25th, 1989. Was directed by Frederick King Keller. Was written by Graham Yost. The synopsis for this is: despite not having time for his son, Mr. Ernst and Buddy team up to foil the plans of a father and son thief duo planning to rob everyone at the ranch. Adam, what are your thoughts?
I'd say this is one of the better episodes of this season that I can recall seeing. I mean, had some good action, had some mostly great father and son moments. I'd say even better than the Goldilocks one. I mean, like you kind of relate in this Cats in the Cradle kind of way. The first, actually a major Cats in the Cradle sort of way, with first starts not having enough time to really be there for Buddy and spend time with him. And as things go on, and as Buddy becomes closer to this other guy, seeing him as a father figure, all of a sudden, Mr. Ernst wants to be able to spend with Buddy now, but doesn't have doesn't have time for him now. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. And a couple good laughs, like the spy camera blinding him briefly.
I'm blinded!
But then, yeah, the twist I could see coming. You know this guy he's just too perfect. You know that he's got some major skins in his closet, and sure enough, he does. So even though I was able to see it coming a mile away, it was the actor playing him handled it well. Both how genuinely friendly and warm he seemed at the start, and then how vicious, cruel his delivery was in the end when the major was revealed.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I taught my son Jay how to throw the lasso, and I thought maybe if I taught you, it might recapture the feeling. But if you don't want to...
No, that's okay.
Great, let's move over here then. Enough of this shutterbugging. You're going to get your wish, it looks like.
What do you mean?
You're coming with me.
Although that was a nice performance from him. Mr. Ernst has a genuinely sad line halfway through it. Says something like, "I don't blame you. I wouldn't want me your father either."
Dad, I was just kidding.
Hey, don't worry about it. No, you're right to be humiliated. I wouldn't want to have me as a father either.
Dad!
But then that makes it all the more sweeter when the new reconcile and prove that actually they are the superior father and son compared to these two crooks.
Our father and son team beat yours. I think we make a pretty good team, don't you, buddy?
Absolutely.
So, big props for this episode. I'd give it a splat ending.
And Brett gave this a splatterific, a single S. And I am going to echo your sentiment, Adam, and give this a double S. I absolutely love this episode. I think this might be my favorite episode of the season. Again, because of the father-son aspect. But there's also one more reason. Because I've made this abundantly clear on the show. I am a huge James Bond fan. And the fact that the show started with Buddy wanting to play with spy equipment, and then later when the con artist showed up and started talking about all this spy stuff, and he's like, "Oh yes, my son used to have all these. He used to go around the house pretending to be James Bond." I instantly perked up and went, what?
Well, my son used to have one just like it, and his spy kit called Secret Sam. We spent more hours with that kid. I'd be some sort of double agent, and he'd be James Bond.
And plus, I love the fact that James Bond is 007, and this is on the 7th episode.
Good point. That never occurred to me.
And I just thought of that whenever I was reading the synopsis, and then that's why I went, "Oh, I just not realized this." I didn't put together that it was the 7th episode. But outside of the James Bond thing, yes, I really do love this episode. I love all the points that you pointed out about the cats in the cradle analogy here, and once again showing just how much they do love each other. Even though that Buddy is disappointed that Dad's always busy having to be on the ranch, and same with Mr. Ernst. He's bummed about the fact that he has to work and doesn't have the time to spend with his son, and then actually gets a bit heartbroken by it. A favorite moment of mine is whenever we don't actually see it happen, but it's when the con artist is spitting fire, and we actually see a flamethrower, I'm assuming is what it was, in Mr. Ernst's glasses. So it wasn't just a flash of light with a sound effect. You actually see fire going across the glasses in the reflection. I thought, ooh, they had a budget for this one, and they didn't even show it on camera. Which also I thought was great, that he's spitting fire, or I forgot what they called the actual term, but it's not just a little puff of fire like you would get sometimes with those kind of performances. No, the full flamed.
Great, buddy. Thanks. Okay, now everyone, stand back.
Oh gosh, I love that. But yes, great episode. Definitely a favorite. Double S. Episode 8: The Good, the Bad, and the Obnoxious. September 1st, 1989 is the air date, and it was directed by Frederick King Keller, and it was written by Clifford Fagan. The synopsis for this is: when Brad's rich, uppity friend shows up at the ranch, he has a hard time balancing her relationship with her and her fellow employee friends. What are your thoughts on this episode?
Trying to think. If we make that other girl, was it Kim? Was her?
I believe it was.
Her catty remarks to Brad, and then the way she was treating Dan in order around.
Now, lower the back one stop. Is that one stop? It feels like 2 stops. Are you deaf?
It definitely got some laughs down when she gets pushed for a horse and lands the manure.
I don't have all day, Bradley. Let's go!
Going off of it for like a full-on Biff Tannen moment, but just the mention of it.
Manure! I hate manure!
Just the mention that I was able to bring out a good from me.
Did you see that? Did you see what she did? What is that smell? Let go of my hand, creep!
That smell is you, babe.
So what is your ranking of the episode?
Let's see. I'd say probably Splat Sting.
Brett, for this episode, gave it a B, and I'm only assuming it's because he really did not like Kimberly in this episode, which I can totally understand. And again, pure assumptions. I give this an S. I give this splatterific, and the reason I rated this so high is because I had to deal with people like this in elementary school. I don't know if I've really said this on the podcast before, but whenever I was in elementary school, I was bullied a lot, and I didn't have really any rich, uppity people that I had to go to school with, but I did have people who treated me very much in the same attitude that Kimberly was treating Brad in this episode. Very, very much, as I like to phrase it, my poop don't stink type personality. And seeing how everyone was really taking to Brad in this episode and being defensive of her. And the moment they realized that Brad was right about her kind of attitude, even Ted, who was very much just seeing her physical figure and really liked her, and then realized, no, Brad's right. This is just absolute trash. And then just dropped her for a second time in the manure, which I thought was great.
That he went from just basically thinking with his hormones to this girl is horrible. She is not worth my time.
Yes. But also the thing that I really, really respected about this episode was the talk that Lucy gave to Brad in this episode. Because we don't see this type of conversation take place in episodes that even are this kind of trope. Because usually you would see they give the handshake and everything's fine by the end of the episode, and they'll be fine for all time. And we do get a handshake in this, but even then, what I like more about this episode is that Brad is willing to forgive her and let all this go, not so that way Kimberly will stop being awful to her, but so that way Brad will begin to let go of all this frustration that she's holding.
I just wanted to say that I truly regret any unpleasantness my behavior may have caused you.
I'm not sure that's an apology.
Kimberly, I'm not sure that's exactly an apology either, but it is the way I truly feel, and I'd like to start with that.
Because there are so few shows that really tap on forgiveness and who forgiveness really is for. And I really, really respect that this episode for that reason. I thought they handled that very, very well. This one. Rain Men, episode 9. Air date for this was September 8th, 1989. It was directed by Ross K. Bagwell Jr. and written by, oh gosh, here we go with the names. Mark Corelli. I hope I pronounced that right. You guys know how wonderful I am with names. The synopsis for this episode is: when a drought strikes the Bar None Ranch, Danny must search inside of himself to find the answer, whether that boils down to helping his friends or stay true to his roots as a Native American. What are your thoughts on this one?
This was a solid one. I mean, right, like I said, it's an adult, solidly Team Danny. He's officially my favorite character show. And one thing that I liked about him, actually, like, in a way, although I didn't really understand it as a kid, kind of liked it even then, is, well, he's obviously an American, the show doesn't really harp on, only a tiny part of his personality, but this is an episode that deals with that aspect of his personality, but done in a way that's respectful, not heavy-handed, just kind of showing that this is what he is. These are some of his beliefs. This is some of how he and his people get along and feel about things. So that was a solid way of teaching kids about those kinds of things, and treating others with basic dignity and their beliefs. So, props for that. I give it a Splat standing.
All right. Brett also gives this a Splat standing, an A. I want to give it an A or higher. I really, really, really do. But I don't know. There's something about the way they handled Ted's absolute insensitivity towards Danny's Native American culture that I don't think that has aged well. That the way Ted handled it, because even after he realized, thanks to Melody, how he crossed a line for his heritage, he seems like, okay, I understand. Oh man, that was a really jerk thing to do. And then he goes back and apologizes, and then pushes even further. Well, how about you just do a little rain dance, or teach me to do a rain dance? You haven't listened to anything. You've not. Stop this. Stop all of this.
Rain? Dance? You're an Indian. It's natural for you.
I've only seen one rain dance, and that was on a TV nature show.
Watch me.
Ted, this is something that's very important to my people, something that goes back thousands of years.
Like if you went to Europe, okay, and some guy asked you what you were, you'd say,
I'm an American.
the same guy took out an American flag and made fun of it. You would?
Punch his lights out. Oh, wow.
I'm sorry about before, okay? I realize that this rain dancing thing is very important to you.
Thanks.
I thought you could teach me how to do it.
And that bothered me some. And also, I don't know, I feel like it's completely out of character for Danny. As much as he loves to prank and he loves to do little jokes and loves to be a little mischievous, we can see in this episode just how important his heritage is. And he's trying to explain to Mr. Ernst, because again, there's a drought in this episode and they have to hire the only well digger in the area is Indian, and Mr. Ernst ended up offending the Indian, albeit unintentionally. And then Danny explained to him, you offended him, and here's how you offended him.
That's $2,500. That's that's just not in the budget. How about a buck?
Umanyuma.
A buck a foot. That's $500. $500 cash. And hey, I'll pop for lunch. What do you say?
No, Mr. Ernst, it most definitely does not. I can see that we have seen nothing more to talk about.
He felt you were questioning his price. To an Indian, that's a major insult. Like you questioned his honesty.
Oh, great. The only well digger in town, and I insult him. What do I do now?
And then he became apologetic, and he wanted to apologize, never had the opportunity. And then by the end of the episode, he's praying to an Indian spirit,
What am I supposed to do here, huh? I know I've never talked to you like this before. Okay, I've never even spoken to you before, but I need your help.
And gets an idea. And I was thinking the idea would be to show the well digger how important this area is to them, and possibly start a conversation between he and Mr. Ernst about he didn't mean to do this, and try to explain. That's where I thought they were going. Where they went was he's going to do more practical jokes showing that nature itself is responding to and the spirits are upset because he's not going to help them.
These beautiful, thirsty flowers. I said the flowers. If you don't help us, hundreds of plants and animals may die. They all depend on water, the very essence of life.
He already has such a strong connection with his heritage that he's going to manipulate that heritage to get this guy to do something. And that feels that feels more like a Ted thing and less like a Danny thing. And I'm really happy that they didn't paint this guy stupid. He knew what they were doing. He knew that he was on to their shenanigans from the very beginning, and even had a confrontation, albeit a very polite one, with Danny, saying, "Yeah, I knew what you were doing." But and go back to the point that I had earlier, it just shows me how much this place really does mean to you. And I like that he wasn't an idiot.
Especially the flowers.
You knew?
Well, let's just say I've seen that kind of thing before.
But I do wish that the writers would have made Ted a little less offensive to Danny's character, I should say. After he's already been established that, dude, you crossed the line. And then I also wish that Danny wouldn't have pretty much gone full Ted and tried to use his heritage to manipulate somebody else. But the message is still a great message, even if it is a bit out of character for Danny. So for this, I give it a B, a Splatisfactory. All right. Well, we have made it a little past the halfway point for the season. So what we're going to do is I'm going to head over into the Bar None mess hall and see if I can get some cactus juice and get out of this hot sun for a bit. Everyone chill for a bit, get out of the sun, take your hats off, take off your boots, get the sand out from them, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Sit tight. Hey Jude, we'll mosey on back after this.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Splat Attack. If you are enjoying this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe, and make sure to hit that notification bell. If you are listening on a podcast app, make sure to leave us a review. These very simple actions help others stay with a nostalgic fun. Make sure to join us over on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/splatattack to get access to exclusive episodes, exclusive bonus minisodes, a couple live streams a month, as well as just getting together and having a good time with other like-minded gakoids. So head over to patreon.com/splatattack. Tune in next time, Slimesters, when we deck the halls and shave some yaks, because we're celebrating not one Christmas ritual, but two. Ren and Stimpy have invited us to partake in their festivities in a Yuletide brawl of an episode battle between Son of Stimpy and a scooter for Yaxmas. So we're eager to see who will bring the heat beside the cozy fireplace. You can find all the retrorific action only here on Splat Attack. Make sure to hit up our bonfire if you want some sweet Nick merch. We've got some Splat Attack original shirts and coffee mugs, as well as shirts that are influenced from other nostalgic 90s Nickelodeon shows, like Legends of the Hidden Temple, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Larissa Explains It All, Double Dare, and more. So go check that out over at bonfire.com/store/Splat-Attack store, with hyphens in between.
You are in the ozone. And now back to Hey Dude.
All right, everybody. we're going to head back out into the ranch and see if we can start doing our chores around the ranch and see what all Lucy's got in mind for us. So we're going to start taking a look at the 10th episode of the season, Ted and Brad Get Handcuffed. Very original title. The air date for this was September 15th, 1989. It was directed by Ross K. Bagwell Jr. and written by Graham Yost. The synopsis for this is Ted's plan to get closer to Brad backfires when they get handcuffed together. And what are your thoughts on this one?
The one thing is that, as Brad is no, that's the done for not me, but the one thing I'm going to give credit for is I liked in Loose a couple times the giants. Parts of the business. Friday mentioned the extreme bittersweet ending of it. You just able to talk to the situation.
I know some of these words.
And what is your rating of it?
I agree with you and Brett. See.
Wow, this is the first one that all three of us are going to be in simpatico. Brett gives this a C, and he does have a note for this one. The weakest episode of the season. Why? The trope is overdone, and the humor dries up faster than a well in the desert. And I very, very much echo that sentiment. We've seen this trope in so many shows, even within Nickelodeon, and often done better. And Brad and Ted already are constantly at each other's throats. I don't need an episode where they're handcuffed together at even closer proximity and being even more ruthless to each other than they've ever really have been. I do like the point at the end, once again, when Lucy was telling Brad, you've gone a little too far this time with some of the things that you've said towards Ted. But at the same time, I'm thinking, yeah, well, what about Ted? He goes over the line all the time. No one tells him that, at least not on camera. But it's not a bad episode by any stretch of the imagination, but it is the weakest of the season, and it's just definite average. Episode 11, Suspicion. Air date for this was September 22nd, 1989, and it was directed by Frederick King Keller, and the writer was Clifford Fagan. Synopsis for this are: the employees at the ranch suspect one of their guests has committed a murder. Must find out who done it.
Yeah, this is another episode that I pretty distinctly remember watching. Especially things like the whole thing about swiping his dad's credit card so that Ted could use it to somehow pick the locked door. By the way, that only in real life that only rarely ever works, and I'm glad that this episode does that, because then Ted didn't break.
Look, I've seen it done 1,000 times. It's a piece of cake. Just give me a minute. Uh-oh.
What uh-oh? No.
That's the fact that it was worse how the terms like shoot and blow up can use in figurative sense.
You were gonna shoot me because
They wanted a new face to star in the commercial. I thought you had the look. I was gonna take some shots.
Blowing up the bar none?
You know, blow up a picture, make it bigger.
So the episode does kind of lose points. I mean, we've seen this kind of thing all the. That's another episode with a trope. This case, guy who they think is dangerous, but he turns out to be perfectly reasonable. This is another case in which I'd agree with both you and Brett. Splatisfactory.
Yes, Brett gave this one a B as well, Splatisfactory. He does have a note for this one as well. The whodunit trope doesn't work for me on the ranch, and the payoff leaves a lot to be desired. Also, why does the culprit sound so familiar?
Well, now that you mention it, there is one kid that might be. Hey, no problem. I'll take care of him tomorrow. Yeah, maybe I'll shoot him in the corral.
The thing that really got to me wasn't necessarily the trope of the whodunit thing within the ranch. That doesn't really bother me. What bothers me is how everyone didn't believe Ted. Because if you think about that, you guys were just having two con artist thieves not even 5 episodes ago. You've had people in this area who are trying to go under the radar and could be doing something very shady. You've had this already, and Ted is not one to over exaggerate about guests. He will over exaggerate about girls. He will over exaggerate about himself. But he's never over exaggerated about a guest before, and that's not a girl. And again, you've had criminals here already. So how is nobody even going to try and question, is this really happening? Is this something worth looking into? Should we call the authorities? Should we do something? And it wouldn't have played. It still would have played out relatively the same, but it would have made for a very different character dynamic that probably would have flowed a little bit easier. But overall, even with that one gripe about it, it's not bad. There's nothing about it that's great. It's not really top tier by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also not weak. It's still a pretty fun romp, even if by the end of it, whenever they're revealing everything that was really happening that we all saw coming a mile away, it's hokey, it's cheesy, it's fun. It's not great, but it's fun. So satisfactory. Episode 12, Employee of the Week. Air date for this is September 29th, 1989. It was directed by Ross K. Bagwell Jr. and written by Alan Goodman. Synopsis for this is: to boost morale, Mr. Ernst establishes a competition for the ranch staff to determine who is worthy of being deemed Employee of the Week. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'd say mostly pretty solid, even though it wasn't pleasant at times seeing Melly tapping in her bad side. Plus Ted actually had a good point when he was backing out, basically saying, I want to wear it there, but I know that if us wins, we can Mr. Ernst to consider out of it. Oh, that's actually pretty solid reasoning for Ted. So pretty good use to Ted. So and a lot of other them ran screw over each other and ended with Danny imitating Mr. Ernst, complete with a hat.
I'm glad you could all be here this afternoon. I have a very important announcement to make.
What is it, Mr. Ernst?
It's in regards to new policy here. For you to get everything you've ever wanted.
Oh, please, anything but that.
For Ted, a bonus.
All right.
All the money you can fish out of the wishing well with your teeth.
I'd say splatterific.
All right, and Brett gave us a double S, Splat Standing. This one was a ton of fun. Loved the goofy regalia everyone had to wear, even though Mr. Ernst was the only one who enjoyed wearing it. And I did enjoy this episode as well. I didn't go as high up as Brett did, but I do tie alongside with Adam's suggestion with an S for splatterific. I did like that we got to see Melody and Ted really at each other. But even then, it really felt like Melody's not trying to compete. Ted is trying to compete with her, and she's just getting fed up with it.
I only got into it because you cared so much.
I just got fed up with everyone's attitudes, especially Ted's. You know, I'd really like to show him.
Now you're starting to sound like him.
Oh, come on, I don't care about it that much.
I could buy that more than I could buy Melody and Brad competing earlier in the season. Because she even had admitted, I just got tired of all of your attitudes towards this employee of the week thing. Because Mr. Ernst is really trying to do something and get us excited about this kind of thing. And then Ted was just being Ted and pushed it too far. And yes, I loved Danny at the end pretending to be Mr. Ernst. I loved all of the goofy sales items that Mr. Ernst was making. It's just ridiculous. It is very, very much fun. A really good, clever use of all the characters for this, because I liked how Brad was totally in on doing this until there was a bowling trophy. And then she was like, no, I'm not doing that.
I have never bowled. I never will bowl, and I can't allow anyone to think that I ever would bowl.
And then Danny was all for it until he realized that there's going to be a little Princess Tiara involved in. No, I don't want to do that either.
I'm out. There's no way I'm dressing up like a beauty queen.
But I like how by the end of it, they all were, instead of it being Employee of the Month, it's Boss of the Century or something to that extent, and gave it to Mr. Ernst. And I thought that was really sweet.
Mr. Ernst, we'd like to present you with this.
No, we've got to make it official.
Oh, no.
I crown the best boss of the decade.
Wait,
our last episode of the season, episode 13, Pain in the Neck. The air date for this was October 6, 1989. Director was Ross K. Bagwell Jr. once again. Written by Judy Spencer. The synopsis for this is: Danny breaks his neck after Ted's distraction with girls goes too far and causes Danny to fall off of a ladder. Now it's up to Ted to make amends by waiting hand and foot on Danny while he recovers. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is another episode which had at least one moment that I remembered as both a kid and an adult, which was the moment when Danny actually falls. How I found it, on the one hand, rather horrifying because he could have easily been killed by that, but at the same time, delivery that yells as he falls, "Don't go the ladder!"
Hey, Charlie, where are you going? Don't let go of the ladder!
Yeah, tormenting with Bell. There was pretty, especially when we got, and it's just, if you found them, he's on a little more relief. So, and I can't really remember, considering that he's just one of our went on a prank. So yeah, he's a little tough. So, everyone was at least trying to supply something to help him. Even down to leaves he's hanging with some honestly boring reading. So, I'd say Splatterific.
Brett gave this an A, Splat standing. I only remember this one for Danny wearing a neck brace as a kid because it looked so strange to me until I learned what it was. Classic, I'll be your slave to make it up to you trope, which is done well without being too overbearing. And yes, this is that trope where we have seen somebody injured or sick and they have to stay bedridden, and they would give a bell to the person in bed. No, you stay and rest. Ring the bell if you need me for anything. And of course, that person would completely abuse that right and constantly ring it and ask for everything under the sun. Will you fluff my pillow, please?
Would you fluff my pillow?
Will you sing me a song to sleep?
You want me to sing to you?
I'd like to read a magazine.
I've read this one. Read it. Oh, that one's okay.
You got it.
My mistake, I've read this one too.
A rare time that we really get to see Danny really push the mischievous character. But And also to see Ted genuinely upset over his actions because he knows it's his fault that Danny is in the condition that he's in. But then to find out later, Danny's been faking it the whole time just to, in a way, get back at Ted for his selfish attitude and not really paying attention to his friends. Um, Again, much like the some of the other episodes in the season where it's a trope that we've seen many many times but done better in other areas, it's good. It's a fun episode. It's not my favorite, but it's not one that I despise either. I give this a B, Satisfactory. And that leaves us with the season 1 overall. What do you rate season 1?
I'd have to be with you and Brett on Splat. I mean, once you did that episode, the rest were real dull. Some were funny, some had moments, marketing, some like the father and the were all. So, all in all, yeah, it tastes excellent. But pretty darn good.
Yes, very, very, very good. It is a good season, teetering on being great. Brett gave this a Splatcellent, an A. He says, though I hadn't ever had the chance to explore the full series yet, this first one leaves me with a lukewarm feeling of Wild West nostalgia. Very much like our My Brother and Me ranking, most episodes are good, a few are great, and one or two are just meh. There's just something I love about all the characters' chemistry that works so well for me, like they're my family away from home, that I can't help but have a soft spot for this season. It's charming in all of its simplicity, drama, and goofy moments at the bar none. Every 90s Nick fan's bucket list travel destination. Watch it at least once if you haven't already. And I do echo the same sentiment. It's amazing to me because I'm part of I've said this before, a 90s Nick Facebook groups. And every time this one gets shared, there's a lot of people who will say one of three things. They will either say, "Oh my gosh, I forgot all about this show. I absolutely love this show." Or the second thing they'd say is, "Man, that theme song slaps." Or the third thing they would say is, "Oh my gosh, I hated this show. I was so bored." And for those who say, "I was bored," go back and watch it again. Because I was that kid. I was the one who was bored with it as a kid, but I wasn't the target demographic at the time. I was far too young for it at first. It's really I'd say probably around 8, 9 years old to preteen years. I was far too young, but they really have good messages for kids, told in a way that is completely understandable. A lot of the hijinks and antics are most of the time off screen, but they do that for safety concerns. Because I mean, you're on a dude ranch. There's only so many things that you are allowed to do with underage performers, and yes, the cast works great together. I think if anything that might draw people away is some of the actors' delivery of some of the jokes, because you have some really, really good performers, and then you have some who you can tell are not actors, but they're trying and they're having fun. They just don't know how to deliver the punchlines quite well. And poor Mr. Ernst, he gets all the goofy things happen to him, and I think they even said at the convention that Mr. Bressman, I think was his name, they had said that he was absolutely hilarious to work with, and all of the funny things that he said, none of it could be filmed on television. He had a lot of jokes that you could only share with adults, and there is a gag reel.
The Bob Saget kind of figure.
Yeah, there is a gag reel floating around on YouTube I'll put a link to it if you guys want to check it out. If you have kids, don't watch it with the kids around because there is some colorful language in it, but that's part of the fun too, is you get to hear them be themselves and not portray the characters.
I hate this stupid rain. I'm going back to New Jersey.
Well, I hate this stupid scene. Let's listen up here. I have a very exciting announcement for you today. I'm getting married. No, I'm coming out of the closet. No, I'm...
Hey, there's Brad. Brad!
Oh, no, don't wave! Don't wave!
Shit.
It is a very fun series, and definitely worth checking out and revisiting if you've not done so in a long time. You can find it all on Paramount Plus, and it is also available on DVD if you can find it on Amazon or someplace like that. So definitely check it out.
I also give it a Splat-cellent, an A.
All right, we are going to have a quick segment of retro replay. We're going to see how observant Adam is on some trivia questions we've got. So we're going to get the VHS tape out, and we're going to do a round of retro replay.
Retro replay.
Alrighty, all of you Slimesters, if you have never seen Retro Replay before, the way this is going to work is I am going to play a clip for Adam to see, and then I will ask him a question based on the clip we just saw and see if he's noticed some of the small details. So I'm going to share this screen with you.
Who's the best? Guys, who's gonna win? The guys! Guys, 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 guys! 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 Guys, 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 go!
Alrighty, and your question for that clip is, how many times does Ted and Danny say guys?
You should maybe the way you it's times.
Yeah, how many times did they say the word guys?
Yeah, I believe it was times. It sounded 10 times.
Well, did you say 10? What was your... It was 10? You said 10?
Yeah.
You were close. It was 12.
Who's the best? Guys, who's gonna win? The guys! Guys, 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 guys! 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 Guys, 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 go!
Very close. All right, clip number 2. This is from Ted's Saddle.
This guy sounds like a complete jerk. I mean, how could anybody be so selfish and uncaring? You know, I'll tell you, Brad, if your friend really likes this guy, then she'll find some way to tell him, because he's liable to end up with no friends at all.
Ted.
But look, I gotta get going, you know. I got Mr. Thomas's boots to deliver, and there's Mrs. Huff's
Ted,
riding
wait.
lesson, and later I promised Billy Frankel I'd teach him how to whistle.
And your question for the second clip is, how does Brad pay Ted for his therapy session?
That actually doesn't you like so doesn't me that the thing. I remember like he was like if you smell polish in it got.
Yes, she smeared the boot polish all over his face.
How's this?
So yes, absolutely, you got that one right.
It's the most qual. It's perfect for services offered, I'd say.
All right, let's see. Now we go on to clip number 3. This was from the 6th episode, which is Rehearsal for Romance.
I am very proud to announce the introduction of a complete line of bar none merchandise. Bar none spaghetti sauce, bar none pickles, bar none mayonnaise, bar none boot polish, and bar none salad dressing. The bar none bow tie, bowler hat, suspenders, and the bar none dress socks.
All right, and your third question is, name 4 items that Mr. Ernst is making available for purchase.
spaghetti sauce, mayonnaise, salad dressing, boot polish.
Boot polish. There you go. You got four. Exactly what you needed. So you're good. All right. We're gonna move on to our fourth question, which is from the 8th episode. That is the good, the bad, and the obnoxious.
Ted? Whoa, Ted. Oh, hey, Luce. Hey, Ted. Listen, I'm gonna give you some advice about women. Oh, yeah? Anything? Drooling won't get you to first base.
And your question for the fourth clip is, what color is the handkerchief that Lucy used to mimic wiping away Ted's drool?
That was another question. It's like purple.
Yes, it is purple. Very good. All right, clip number 5. We are into episode 10. Ted and Brad get handcuffed.
The way you've been, I'd rather be handcuffed to a pit bull who hasn't eaten in 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'd rather be handcuffed to a...
Oh, come on, hit me with your best shot. Yeah, you can do it, Brad. Come on. Don't disappoint me. Oh, call a doctor. Somebody call a doctor. The insult sector of her brain is seized up.
And question for clip number 5. Why was Ted fake calling for a doctor?
The insult sector of her brain wasn't working.
Absolutely right. The insult sector of Brad's brain had seized up.
No, seized up, yeah.
Yeah, you got it. All right, 2 questions left. We are on to episode 12, Employee of the Week.
The specially chosen staff member will also receive
a bonus?
More goof-off time?
A nice letter home telling our parents we won?
Double desserts?
No.
And question is, name 3 of the 4 prizes that the staff listed off.
Easy. Bonus, extra goof off time, double desserts.
All right, you got it. Do you know the 4th one?
The 4th one was a letter home telling the winner's parents that they won.
And I think they even listed this list 3 or 4 times in the episode. And our final question is from the last episode, Pain in the Neck.
A little dry rot up there. So anyway, I've been making a list here of all the things we need to be taken care of, and I'd like you to make a list too.
Loose roof tile. There you go.
All right, question is, how many flowers are on Mr. Ernst's shirt?
I missed that one. Was it 4?
There were 10. 10 were on his shirt. There was 2 up on his right under his shoulders, 1 on the back, 2 on the back of his shoulder, 2 below his chest pockets, and then 2 on his collar.
That was way off that one.
That was a very, very small detail. It's like, oh, well, we'll throw that one in there. But still, that is very respectable. Of the 7 questions, you got 5 of them right. So, well done.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that is going to be it for this episode, Slimesters. We are going to go to our closing question for all of you. Which of these Hey Dude episodes resonated with you the most and why? You can write to us via email at splatattack2021@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, all the socials, at Splat Attack Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, Splat Attack Podcast. Interact with us wherever you can on social media. We're always happy to hear from you. And as for, even though Brett couldn't be here, I really want to thank you, Adam, for taking the time to be here. I know that you and Brett are friends, and it was actually because you and Brett had started conversing to be a part of this episode, you still wanted to be here for it. And it really means a lot to me. And it was great to get to meet you. So thank you so much for being here in this episode.
Likewise. Oh, and if I may, shameless plug, I wrote a blog called The Night Crawler Experience. Basically, my 2 main passions are pop culture and my faith as a Christian. So basically, it's me combining those two, giving perhaps faith-based reviews of movies and shows or devotionals themed around them. And I often do nostalgic entertainment. Like the most recent one that I did near Halloween was looking at the Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, The Tale of Land in the Dark, from a Christian perspective. And so, if anyone's so inclined, I usually put it out every 1 to 3 months at nightcrawlerexperience.blogspot.com.
Yes, we'll definitely be putting that in our in the description, and everyone go check it out. Be supportive. You guys were all awesome. And Adam, again, thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to me, so thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Alrighty, until next time, I need to scrape the slime off of this wall. I've got to help Ted clean up after a horse kicked him into some mud.
While you help him, Danny and I are going to go dry off Mr. Ernst after he fell into a trouble just now.
These boys sure do love to horse around, don't they?
You can say that.
Slide you later, Slimesters. Watch out for those fighting jackrabbits and those killer cacti. Later.
Sweeten the deal, I'm adding...
The bonus Ted asked for.
No.
The letter home that Danny asked about.
No, you'll never guess.
More goof off time for me. Or double the dirt. Sorry.
Double the dirt.
Double the dirt.
Highly excited, Danny. I'll be back in an hour with my drills.
Yeah! Yeah! Oh, yeah! One more time, yeah! You got it, yeah! A plethora of yes!